Are you interested in starting your own cash PT practice? Maybe a little side hustle practice right now because you're bored with what you do at work and you're seeing massive volumes of patients. I found the most success by going this route through a practice in a gym. And this is why I started the Gym PT Blueprint. The Gym PT Blueprint is really a program that shows you exactly how to be successful in the cash model, whether it's a side practice or you're diving head first like I did. This shows you exactly how to set your finances up correctly, how to set your practice up correctly, how to sell things, how to market yourself, and how to really convey your unique value to other people so that they'll want to pay you for it. If you are struggling to figure out how to set your practice up correctly, or if you're in practice and you're not making it at least 5 figures a month at this point, you really should check out the Gym PT Blueprint. Head over to drdannymattei.com/products. That's DRDANNYMATTA.com/products to take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and see how this program can help you become successful. So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mattei, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. What's up, guys? Dr. Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. And today, I'm super excited. We got Kyle Paxton with the, let me make sure I'm saying this right, Integrated Kinetic Neurology.
You got it. Company,
which it's, I guess it's a method or an approach, and we'll kind of get into like what this is. And I'm really excited to learn about the evolution of a continuing education company from grassroots, like, you know, you guys getting this thing going. And I think it's phenomenal. I love to see people branching off into different variations of what they can use their skill set in PT with. And this is just one variation where you can now go and have a business where you educate other people. So, Kyle, first of all, man, thanks so much for jumping on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. I've been following your content for a while, so it's good to finally get a chance to chat.
Well, thanks for saying that, man. I appreciate it. We like to highlight people like yourself that are doing things that are, different within our community, and not only that, but highlight that it is possible to do some of that stuff. So, this is going to be a really cool conversation. So, tell you what, give me your background and as far as it goes as physical therapy to begin with, and then we'll kind of get into the integrated kinetic neurology portion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I went to PT school up in good old Western New York at a school called Nazareth College. Graduated from there, and right out of PT school, I started my own cash-based practice in the DC area. So that's where I am now. I've kind of been running that since I graduated. And then I got to a point that I was like, man, this cash-based PT stuff, it gives me a lot of flexibility. I've really been able to experiment with a lot of cool new techniques that I wasn't able to in school, and I was never honestly exposed to in school. But over time, taking a bunch of continuing ed courses, really experimenting, we started to come up with some really cool concepts that we weren't really seeing combined in the way that we were doing them. And we were like, I really feel like some people would be interested in knowing what we're doing. And that was kind of the first thought to where we had, how are we going to do that? And we've kind of been on this journey since. But yeah. So I run my practice. It's called Arlington Performance Care out of Arlington, Virginia, right across the river from DC. We got 2 locations here, one out in the suburbs in McLean, and then we're working on opening up a 3rd location in DC here in a couple months. So plugging away at that, but it's just exciting to be able to get to the teaching aspect of things, because I really enjoy that. I've always liked when people are coming in and kind of watching my treatment sessions and kind of just talking about my thought process. And that's really where it started. We wanted to get our thought process out there because there's such a dogma in the PT world now that we want to stir things up a little bit. So that's kind of where I am now. And we're kind of plugging away at this integrated kinetic neurology thing, trying to get things up and running. But yeah, it's been a pretty crazy ride since PT school. Never really went the traditional route of working for someone else.
Tell me about that. Because how long have you had your cash practice for? Because you say cash practice and it perks my attention there a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've been up and running here for almost 2 years now. So things have been great. We opened up a second location pretty quickly.
Who's we, by the way?
So it's me. Well, so I'm the only owner officially, but I have two other part-time therapists who are working with me right now.
Cool.
We kind of bounce around between the two locations, looking to finalize some full-time therapists. And my business partner in integrated kinetic neurology is actually going to be coming over to open up the DC location for Arlington Performance Care. So we're going to kind of bring heads together. But yeah, so when I was in school, I just was very frustrated with the structured way of things, the way clinical was, and you have to wear a polo with khakis, and like, this is what you have to do. And it just always frustrated me. So in PT school, due to my exercise science undergrad background, I was working at a gym called Wanna Get Fast in Rochester, New York. Really doing some crazy cutting edge things in the strength and conditioning world. A guy named Dan Fichter owns it. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I would definitely check out their Instagram and stuff like that. But they have a practice attached to them called Pittsford Performance Care. So that's kind of where we branched off from. And I peeked my head in there one day, and I was in PT school, so I was kind of interested. They're actually chiropractors, but physical medicine's physical medicine.
Sure.
So they were doing some really cool stuff, and I was like, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you working on that area of the body when something's totally different? And they started going through their kind of brain running the whole show talk. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's ignorant to think that we're not going to treat the brain when the brain literally controls everything in the body. So once I started talking with them, I really went down that hardcore rabbit hole. And I knew very quickly that the only way I was going to be happy out of PT school was to run with that and do my own thing. So they were pretty gracious in helping me kind of get the business set up and helping me work through that, because I had never experienced that before. But yeah, I just kind of dove in head over heels here, came down to Washington, D.C., didn't know a single person, not a friend, no nothing. Opened up a little tiny clinic, about 600 square feet in a random office building. And just like went to work marketing like crazy, setting up tents at the end of races, whatever I had to do to get my name out there. And I made some really cool relationships, and now we've moved all our locations inside other gym facilities. So that's kind of the model we're running with. But yeah, it's been really great. The cash-based model obviously allows us some pretty cool flexibility, and luckily I'm in an area where people are educated, have some income and stuff like that, to where they really appreciate that extra service. So it's been a perfect fit, and things are going great. We're kind of growing every year, doing some cool new stuff, trying to incorporate the education things, and having a cool strength and conditioning vibe with it. So I love it. I mean, I have a rule here, no khakis. That's my rule. If I see anyone,
how about pleats?
No, nope. Sweatpants, shorts only, because we're showing movement, and that's all you're going to wear.
Well, what about Lululemon ABC pants?
Yes, that is okay. We are, because
that's literally all I wear.
Yep, that's awesome.
Backstory: when I was teaching a shitload for Mobility WOD, the second time I ever taught, first trip I actually ever took away from where I was at, I blew my jeans out squatting at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I had to teach the rest of the day with my underwear hanging out. And so ever since then, I agree with you, man. You got to be careful. I think that's cool that what you're doing too, by the way. Obviously, I agree with you about the demographic, because actually, I know a decent amount of folks in the DC area that have cash practices, and I think it's one of the more accessible kind of places to do it, because you're right. I think the education level is higher. And I get this question a lot from people like, hey, where's a good place to start a cash practice? Is it the most affluent place? No, it's the place with the highest education level. And if you can couple that with people that are impatient and want to get results fast, you got a winner. And that is the DC market.
Yeah, there's some pretty crazy type A personalities around here. And to the point where sometimes when people walk into my office, I tell them, you need to take a second in that room and relax a little bit. Yeah. Because that's how people run around here. But when you can give them a product that gives them change really fast, they appreciate it and they tell everyone. So it's pretty easy to get a good word of mouth marketing situation here. And it's worked out well. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's delve into this. So you created a little bit of flexibility in your schedule with this cash model, and then having a couple part-time people. So tell me about the kind of origin of integrated kinetic neurology, and what does that kind of pull from as well? Like what other kind of big name people or certifications that you've seen or research that you've seen? Like where are some of the bigger ideas that you've been able to meld this together come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my co-founder, Ryan Foley, I went to PT school with him up in Nazareth. He's actually living in Ireland right now. That's where he runs his cash-based practice. So me and him, we were like the two people out of our class that opened up practices on our own, and we were always friends in school. So we started bouncing ideas off each other and just kind of working through some stuff. And the amount of continuing education courses that have been taken between the two of us in the past like 2 years is absolutely mind-boggling. So we've taken an insane amount. And the goal of that was, there's, like you said, a lot of people doing a lot of really, really cool things. And what we came to find is like, we're frustrated when these education companies teach and they're all about, this is the way to fix people, and there's a lot of the companies out there that they get people to be brainwashed that is the only technique and this is what you do. So like when you go and say, this is this type of person, that's just not how we think it should be. So we're like, what are we going to do here? Let's come up with something that kind of takes pieces of everything and presents it in a really practical way and get people to have open discussions of how to combine it with their other current techniques, because that's our mantra. We think there's no singular way to heal the body, right? If there was such a thing, that person who knew that way would have a line out their door forever. It's just not how it is. So we've kind of bounced around a bunch of continuing ed stuff, and the road we started going down is the road both of us have kind of started our practices with is the brain kind of runs the show. So the nervous system being the new lens of focus rather than strictly the orthopedic system is the way I think everyone who's kind of progressive in their treatment sees the field going in general. So we took a bunch of different courses. I mean, we've had people in our circle take Z Health type courses. We've had people take PDTR. We've had people take Perry Nicholson courses. All kinds of stuff of these people who have really cool, innovative ideas, and seeing how they work on people. And we've been experimenting with all these different techniques for years now. And what we found is when you can take as many different stimuli as possible and throw those at the body, that's going to give you the best opportunity for change. So our IKN stuff from the beginning has been about trying to incorporate as many different techniques into one course as possible, and taking a little piece from this, turning it into our own thing, applying it into kind of our mantra, and piecing it together like that. That's kind of been a long road. I mean, really, in the scheme of things, integrated kinetic neurology is 5 months in the making right now. We have like 8 courses scheduled over the next 6 months. So it's really just getting up and running. But the thing we wanted to set from the beginning is we want to make an all-inclusive environment. We don't want to have people worried about filming or worried about saying names of other courses like you find at some of these courses that you go to. We want to encourage a community of people who are just trying to progress the field forward. And that's been tough for us to find. So we're like, we got to do it ourselves, I think. And to a certain extent, I think people appreciate the honesty of it, because at the beginning of every one of our courses, we say, no one can truly know what's going on with the body. We just know that if you do these things, the output's going to improve. So that's the only way you can truly work through stuff. If you come across anyone who says, this is why this happens, run the other direction, because there's just no way to truly know. We don't even know what's going on inside of our own body. So for me to tell you what's going inside of yours is pretty tough.
I agree, man. And I tell you, just looking at the evolution of pain science over the last, 5-10 years, you should teach this kind of closed loop. Oh, this hurts, and then it goes up this pathway, and then this decision of whatever goes down, and we know it's much more complex than that. And I tell you what I've noticed in the last 10 years roughly at this point is the more somebody has confidence that you're the right person, the more likely it is that they're going to get better.
100%.
You know? And that's something that I teach to my, the two other PTs that we have in our practice. And I tell them, look, it's important that you improve your skill set, but your ability to have a really sound communication skill set, to listen to people, to be able to read their body language, to have a lot of high level emotional intelligence is just as important as your ability to do to dry needle the infraspinatus or whatever. And so is that something that you guys get into in this methodology in terms of, not necessarily some of the manual or treatment stuff, but some of this sort of like very subtle stuff that makes huge differences?
Yeah, 100%. So I think one thing we really like to cover is some of the stuff that we're teaching is a little bit outside the box, right? So your communication has to be on point with the patient, because when a patient walks into a PT office, they have a certain expectation of what they're going to get. And if you throw all this crazy stuff at them, no matter how well you think it's going to work, if it's not at least somewhat what they're expecting, or if they're not truly understanding it, they're just not going to get better. So every single piece of the process that we kind of walk through and all the different things we go through, we really make sure to stop before we even teach it, of how you would talk to a patient about it, how you're going to kind of cover this, how you're going to tie it back into what's going on. Because I've run into this many times, is you're doing something and it should make them feel better, but when they get up, it doesn't make them feel better. So if you can involve the patient in the healing process, if you can really get them to be an active participant, the results are always better. So all the stuff we do at IKN is really involving the patient. And that could be as simple as just making them report what they're feeling, or it could be getting them to visualize things while they're doing it, getting them to walk through the process, getting them to tell us kind of the history of it while we're doing treatments, all kinds of stuff. But the second the dialogue stops and the second they kind of drift away from the treatment is the second the results are going to stop, no matter how good of what you're doing, how good of a treatment that you're doing. So it's hugely important, especially with this new progressive stuff. So we try to cover it, because those are the questions we get. They're like, well, yeah, I see that it makes the change, but like, how the heck are you going to communicate that to the patient? Because some of it is outside of the box, and the brain and nervous system is a crazy thing, and some of it seems completely unrelated. So really emphasizing the education piece at the beginning, and getting them to trust you. If they don't trust you, they're just never going to get better, no matter what the process is. So at Arlington Performance Care, at least, we really try to stress building a true relationship with that client. In this field, whether it's ICANN or whatever, we're all rehab practitioners, we're all trainers, we're all dealing with people, and health and money are the two most sensitive things to people. So if you can really get them to trust you, you can really take people a long way. So yeah, hugely important. I would say, honestly, it's almost more important than the actual treatments we teach. And it goes along well with the ICANN approach, because everything we do is really incorporating all the inputs to the body. So that's just as much what you're hearing, just as much what you're thinking, just as much what you're seeing with your eyes. All those inputs, not just getting touched on the skin, but those psychological inputs are incredibly important to the rehab process.
No, absolutely. I mean, even the way the patient experiences your location is incredibly important, right? Like, I've had people that come in and in our satellite office in a gym, and they've never been to a CrossFit gym before, and they are on guard like you would believe, man. They're just like, they're more stressed out than they would be in other places. And they can take a few minutes of us listening to them and talking to them, and reassuring them that, like, hey, you're in the right spot, and like, tell me about, your family, what's going on. Like, I want to learn a bit more about you besides like your back or whatever the hell you're here for. And being able to control that patient experience in, like, we have a standalone practice at this point in our Decatur office. And, we're very specific. It smells a certain way. It looks a certain way. There's certain music that's on. There's a certain way that we greet people. There's a certain way that we say goodbye to people. We always try to use their name every time that they come in. Like, it's a very important. It's very important to us to have a very specific environment. And a lot of that it's not just the fact that we want them to have a good experience and then want to come back or to refer somebody, but also we know that if they feel like they're in a welcoming, safe place, especially when we start looking at these chronic pain patients. Our outcomes, the likelihood of us getting a positive outcome improves because of that as well. So I like what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the first premises we cover. You can do any treatment in the world, but if you can use the stuff that we teach at IKN to create that safe, malleable environment, then you can do all kinds of treatment and it's going to get a change.
Yeah.
But if the body's in that flight or fight state, you could throw anything at it and it's going to bounce right off because it's not willing to accept that yet. So every single treatment we do at IKN is really focused at creating safety in the brain, whether that's a manual technique working through the lymphatic system, whether that's some of our specific like neural balancing safety movements, whether it's some of our sensory integration stuff. All of it's focused at creating that safe environment, because when it's there, you can get some really crazy change, and that change can happen immediately.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So tell me about the process of starting a continuing education company. What have been some of the highlights, and what have been some of the speed bumps that you've hit along the way? Yeah.
So kind of, like I said, it started with an idea of, we're like, man, people have got to be interested in this type of stuff. People are looking for new stuff that we think they will appreciate, this kind of honest, open approach. So step number one was, how the heck are we going to get this thing off the ground, right? Because there's some pretty big name players out there, and getting people interested in a product that they've never heard of and then getting them to pay you for it is a tough process. So we wanted to come up with a name first, right? And we wanted it to be relatively all-encompassing, but at the same time, not super cookie cutter. So the name Integrated Kinetic Neurology, we thought incorporated everything, integrated. We're really looking at a holistic body. Kinetic, we incorporate a ton of movement into our classes. And then neurology, obviously, because we're kind of looking through that neurological lens. So once we kind of had a name that described what we did to a certain extent, it was a matter of coming up with how we're going to have a course go. And I never realized how difficult putting together a 2-day course would be. Yeah. But coming up with the order of things and really figuring out how to communicate what's going on in mine and Ryan's brains accurately to a group of people is difficult. So we play off each other really well, me and Ryan. We've known each other for a very long time. So we know our backgrounds. We can just kind of guess what each other's thinking, but people who have never met us in a course have no idea what we're thinking. So we had a couple kind of test run courses, which was really, really helpful for us. So we have a group of guys from my PT school in Nazareth who we have a little text group called the Physio Fellas, and we're always bouncing ideas off each other and saying some cool new stuff. So we invited them all down to the DC area and went through a course a couple months ago and got as much feedback from them as possible and changed a lot of things. And that's what we've been doing a lot since we came up with the name, which we have found is the easiest part of it, is changing things almost every day. So because we're in our practices, we're trying stuff. We're like, actually, I think this is probably a better way to teach this. Actually, I think this should be this order. And that's what we want IKN to be as we go here. The course you take now, in 2 years from now, we would expect to be very different because we're learning new things and we want it to be progressive with the culture. So the structure of the course has been the most difficult so far because in the beginning, you're trying to drag people into your course, right? You're taking anyone you can get and you want to make sure they have a positive experience because you need those people to tell other people about it. So we wanted to try our best to have it be a home run right from the beginning. So we're doing our best to do that. We've had 2 courses so far. We have actually one in the DC area this weekend, our I Can Approach course, which is a 2-day, 8-hour-a-day course. We got 8 more courses coming up. We're going to Miami in 2 weeks to Stephanie Cohen's Hybrid Performance Gym. So we got a bunch of cool sites coming up. And that's kind of been the next step, is getting people that we trust in the industry to give us a chance to teach them what we know. So reaching out to people. I mean, we've been working with the Movement Maestro a bunch lately. She really likes what we do. She has a great following. We're trying to find people who we know have the demographic following them that would be interested in what we do. And if you can find those people to really jump on board with you, I think that's the fastest way to accelerate anything, whether it's a private practice or an education company. If you can get other people that already trust those people to be speaking good things about you, then that has really helped. So
you're saying, so what you're describing is social media influencer marketing.
Yeah, 100%. So whether it's directly on social media or whether it's finding host courses or host sites in the cities that we're having courses, really doing active marketing for us, because we're just two guys. We have a couple other assistant teachers from in our group here, but there's only so much we can do when we run our own practices. So really trying to find people who want to push this approach, this thought process that we're trying to get out there, has been really, really helpful in the beginning. It's just picking those people carefully.
Well, I tell you, man, I think that, I've seen this firsthand with the development of Mobility Watt and the courses that we teach. It's not easy to set up a 2-day course. In fact, it's one of the more challenging things I've ever been a part of. And it's also very challenging to completely agree with other people when you're looking at trying to set that up. So you and your business partner, how's that relationship in terms of, being able to decipher what you both are, trying to get into a 2-day course, and actually, agree on like the setup and the flow and what you want to talk about in verbiage and all that. Cause in my opinion, that's been the hardest part of course development that I've been associated with.
Yeah, absolutely. Generally we're on the same mindset, right? We both are on our own practices. We're friends, but at the same time, we're our own individual people. So we've been piecing together, and he's in Ireland, so it's not quite as easy to just sit down and chat things out. So we've been working on a lot of Google Docs, and it's kind of just going back and forth, a lot of FaceTiming. It really just comes down to actively hearing out their explanation versus my explanation, and thinking, what are other people going to think when they hear this? Because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter what I think or what he really thinks. It's how do we get other people who aren't in our heads to truly understand it? And that's usually the way we go with it. So whoever has a better way of portraying that, that's what we kind of put in. And it's worked out well because Ryan, I mean, he's an absolute genius. He's what I would call the creative side of the business. He's always coming up with genius new ideas, cool new ways to modify things. And I like to take more of the business side, Instagram marketing, sales side of things, and obviously still putting my piece into the treatment. But when you can start to establish some roles, I think that's really, really helpful. And it's important because, I mean, having a business partner you don't work well with can be the demise of a business pretty quickly. And with some of the tribulations we ran into at the beginning and how well we worked through that, I knew from there forward that we were going to work really well together, because we were getting some hate and some flack at the beginning about what we were doing and where we were getting stuff from. And there's just people who are very protective of some things, and trying to navigate through all of that was a big piece of our relationship moving forward, I think. And since then, it's been all about grinding. We're both kind of the 24/7 kind of guys. I mean, we both run our own practices, but when you get home, it's getting on emails, it's getting on Instagram, it's marketing, it's messaging people. I mean, the amount of people, and I'm sure people listening to this podcast have gotten messages from us on Instagram because it's in the 5,000 plus range. That's just kind of what it takes to get your name out there. And we're both with that same track of mind. So it's worked out really well so far. We definitely have our differences, but I think our differences play well off each other. So it's been great. I mean, I've never had a business partner before because I'm a solo guy over here. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but I love having the help. I love being able to bounce an idea off someone and have them kind of fight back on it, because when you're by yourself, you don't have that checks and balances system that you do have when you have a business partner. So although at times you can kind of butt heads a little bit, in the long run, I think it's really, really beneficial, and I would recommend it compared to doing something on your own.
Well, you know what they say: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
100%.
You know, and it's true. You definitely need a team. Have you guys gone through a CEU process for this? And if so, what has that been like?
Yeah. So we haven't. I've reached out to some of the accrediting bodies, and unfortunately, they are very reluctant to give CEUs to things that are very new to the game. So they're
including like the APTA or like NSCA and all that.
Yeah. So APTA does not like giving out CEUs to things that are not inherently tangible or with like 10 years of research behind them. And unfortunately, I mean, you see it. I mean, if you go to some of these courses, Perry Nicholson's a great example. One of the smartest guys in the field, always coming up with awesome stuff. But the CEU stuff just isn't involved. So that's a hurdle, because until we get more research behind this nervous system stuff and we can really get it pushed forward in the field, I think it's going to be a little bit of a lag with the CEUs for some of these courses. I've tried to argue it. They are very, very particular with what they give CEUs to. They require a lot of information. They require a lot of studies and stuff. They require very specific things. And in the beginning, it just hasn't been worth the battle, because it's just not there. I mean, it's with the stuff we're doing and the stuff that people are really pushing into the field now, we know it works. The question is now you have to get all the studies on the back end to prove it working, you know.
But do you feel like this is going to hamstring you guys a little bit in terms of value for PTs in particular, right? I mean, they're always, regardless of what's taught, you know, if there's like, well, am I going to get my CEUs? You know, because that's what they care about. You know, they want to, you can get your CEUs on taking some fucking quizzes online. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I know it's definitely it's a hang up for certain.
It's
providers.
A battle. We get the question all the time to our on our website or the Instagram. Oh, how many CEUs do you guys give? Blah, blah, blah. And it's frustrating when we have to kind of tell them that we can't give any right now. But at the same time, I think in these initial stages, when we're really trying to build a community of people that want to move the field forward, the people we want coming to our courses are the people that truly are interested in the knowledge, and they understand the value of getting that knowledge, even if they're not getting CEUs. I can tell you right now, the best courses I've ever taken are the ones I didn't get CEUs at, because they're not restricted by some of the accrediting bodies. So yeah, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because the people you get to coming to your courses are really, really awesome, and they really contribute to the conversation, and they're not just there to get CEUs, they're really there to get as much knowledge as possible. So it's been good in these beginning stages, but obviously the goal of what we're trying to do is blow this thing up. We want this to be a really big education company, and at some point the CEUs is an inevitable process. So if we can get some credibility behind us, we can start piling together some more research as it starts to come out, really start to get a lot of people using our approach. I think that's coming, and that's something we certainly want to do. By no means are we trying to not do it, because it does add that extra value piece, and that's what people are looking for when they come to a course, that value, you know. Sure. If you can give them some inherent value with CEUs, and it's not as hard of a sell on the information side of it, you know.
Well, so you said, you know, your goal is you want this to be a big continuing ed company, a big education company. What does that look like? So in 3 years, like, what is that, you know, what would be a home run for you guys with this in 3 years?
So we've obviously kind of put together some models of where we want this thing to go. Our goal is, in these initial stages, we have a course called I Can Approach, which is our 2-day kind of hefty course of what our thought process is and kind of where we're coming from. And we want to push that as much as possible in this first year. We want to get a community of people who are thinking like us. And then our goal is to add these supplementary courses.
I'm sorry, man. My dog is fucking asleep, and he is, if you hear this, he literally, I'm going to wake him up. Hang on. having a bad dream or something. He's over here kicking his legs, and he's like, he's sorry, man. My bad.
No, you're totally fine. I specifically made sure I stayed in a very quiet room in the office because I have a puppy at home, and she's a crazy person.
Buster, this is an 11-year-old dog, and he's having a nightmare. So I apologize, but we're leaving that in here because that's just the way it is. So anyway, all right, 3 years. Where do you guys want to be?
So we really want to push this ICANN approach course because we think it'll get people into the mindset of what we're doing at Integrated Kinetic Neurology. And so we're trying to push that to as many people as we can in this first year. And then once we get a good community behind us, we want to start having these other courses that kind of branch off it, right? So we have the thoughts of like an ICANN performance course, which is a one-day course that's like 100% exercise-based, but all the movement is tailored toward the cerebellum, the nervous system, all that type of stuff to kind of fall under our bigger umbrella. We have another course that we're calling ICANN Kinetic Flow, which is really meant to be like a supplement to the yoga Pilates world, with teaching how to create that safety and movement and incorporate some of these reflexes and stuff in a yoga course. So we want to try to take our approach and apply it to as many different realms as possible, because if you step back, what we're doing, creating safety and giving input to the body is going to be helpful even outside of the rehab world. It's just it's going to allow you to move more efficiently. I mean, I like to think that even some of the stuff we do decreases stress and allows you to kind of get through your day better. So we know it has a broad approach. Obviously, we're PT, so that's kind of where we're starting at the beginning. But definitely ICANN approach. We want to get some of these other offset courses going. And then really where we want to take things is webinar-based stuff. I think there's a huge movement now to having digital content out there, and I think there's an opportunity in what we're doing to have a lot of really good hour, 2 hour, 30-minute one-off things of specific kind of case study things. I mean, everyone wants to know, okay, so you have neck pain. What do you do? How would we walk you through going through a specific neck pain case? We're working with modern manual therapy coming up here at the end of the month with some webinar stuff, trying to get that piece rolling. But I think that's the opportunity to get the biggest reach, is to get that webinar digital content rolling. But you can't do that until you have a community of people around you who actually want to hear that webinar stuff.
Well, are you saying a webinar as a digital paid product, or a webinar as a lead generation tool?
Both, I think. I think one thing we're finding out is people respond much better to video, because when you can really see something, you're much more likely to have a conversion on the product. So this weekend specifically, we're working on trying to put together some kind of teaser videos and some things that give demos of what we're doing, and so you can see the change, get an idea a little bit better, and start pushing those as a lead generation. But then on the backside of it, from a true paid content side of things, I think whether it's like a membership subscription like a lot of people are doing now, or whether it's just one-off videos, that's kind of remains to be seen. But we want to get into that market at some point. That's definitely in our 3-year plan. But we know the best way to convince people is to be in front of them, earn their trust, just like you would in the clinic. So that's kind of what we're doing, setting up a lot of in-person courses. We're going to try to grind out as many as we can here. So we have me and Ryan teaching. Obviously, we're the co-founders, but then we have a group of other instructors who are kind of helping us, and they're kind of pinpointed all around the country, so it's making it easier for us.
Yeah.
We're working on going to Amsterdam in the fall, so we're trying to get some Europe stuff going. But one thing I found, and I mean, what I learned in my cash practice, the only way to do something is to jump 2 feet first. And if you're going to do it, like really commit to it and throw as much as you can, and usually it'll come out okay. Well,
I'll give you, just from my experience, and especially have an opportunity to talk with, Kelly about how Mobility WOD started. And I don't think people realize how much that guy was on the road for years. This isn't for 1 year, for like 4 years. He was traveling 35 to 40 weekends, a year. That's almost every single weekend. He would sleep on his treatment table at the office when he would get back. And it drives me absolutely crazy, when people think that they can achieve something without having to put, work in. And there's certain things to be said for doing, working hard on the wrong things. And that's just not going to get you anywhere. But yeah, the in-person, effect of in a world that is heavily digitized, and like we're very digital, we can go to look at webinars, and I think that's great in terms of scaling digital products and membership sites with recurring revenue. And man, there's all kinds of possibilities with that. But what you can't get away from is the fact that when you are in front of somebody, when you're able to connect with that person, it's huge. And I've, the amount of courses I've taught, I still get people that email me. Somebody emailed me from like 3 years ago, a course that I taught, just out of the blue. And it was something that they came up and they're like, oh man, I should email Danny about that or whatever. And it's because we had a connection of something that we were talking about, and it's big. So, I think getting out there a lot is huge. And listening to, Jeff Moore talk about start of Ice Physio and, how, he had 3 people the first course he taught, less than 5 for the first 8 that he taught, and he's like, hey, I talked to those 3 people just like there were 50 people.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece, especially in the beginning. And you're not going to make the killing and make the money on the courses in the beginning. And that's not what it's about. Coming up in DC here this weekend, we have 8 people, but those 8 people are going to get the best product that we could possibly give them, because those are 8 people who are now going to tell all their PT friends that they went to an awesome course. And you're a PT, I'm a PT. The only reason I take a course is because someone told me it was a really cool course. And sure. That's what we're trying to build. But poor Ryan, he's in Ireland. He's flying over for every single course we have. That's a lot of hours put in. It is. Yeah, it's not great, which is why we're trying to get him to the US here. It's a lot of traveling. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of really working, trying to fill the courses. One thing we found is, in the beginning, we're big components of not giving something away for free if you're really good at it. But at the same time, you got to understand that people have no idea who you are. So there's some people on this earth that let them to come to your course for free is going to be way more valuable on the backside of it. So even though we're not making crazy money on these first courses, that's not what it's about. It's really refining our teaching craft, really refining the product itself, but getting these small groups of people. And if you've been to courses that are 10 people versus 50 people, the courses with 10 are always better. You're having really individual conversations. You're really able to work one-on-one with the people teaching. So I like the smaller aspect. Obviously, at a certain point, they have to be a little bit bigger. But the amount of people in the course has been a grind. And that's why we're trying to get people who are on board with it to help us with the marketing in their host sites, because it's hard enough. I'm in DC to fill a DC course, let alone fill a course that we got coming up in San Diego in June, when I don't know anyone out there. So it's tough, and it's not about the money. Hopefully nothing ever is. Obviously, you start businesses to make money, but in these initial stages, we want to prove to people that we really have something special, and it's not even about the techniques, just how we're taking on the field and how we're taking on the dogma of education, and what we're trying to teach and have communicated in our courses is different. So the grind to get people in the courses and seeing those, we still get excited every single time we see a registration pop up. I don't know if that'll ever get old, but it's exciting.
You know what? I don't know if it does. I felt the same way. I still feel the same way whenever I see people that, commit to it. Means they're investing in you and they trust you, right? Yeah. They're investing in the information they're going to learn there. And I think that is a really cool thing. But if you're listening to this, you're on your lunch break or you're driving in your car and you're going to see your shitty 25 patient a day, volume job. And you're thinking, man, are people actually doing other things? Yes, people are doing other things. And not only that, you have the capacity to do that much, much, not easier, but it's more acceptable to drive into something like a cash practice, which for you led you down the route of trying to become the best at something that you could and learn as much as you possibly could, and then free up your time and develop another business in conjunction with that. And if you hadn't done that, it's probably unlikely that result would have happened. So, if you're listening to this and you're on the fence and thinking, is it possible? I don't know how many people we have to interview to show you that it is and that it's happening. And our field is changing, and it's super exciting to see that. So I thought this would be a great talk. I'm interested to watch the evolution of IKN, to see what you guys are doing. I think you're doing some smart social media work. So, go check them out for sure on social media. If people want to know more about like the approach or where you guys are teaching, and really kind of see what it's all about, or reach out to you, where can they go about doing that?
Yeah. So our two best places to reach out to us is directly through Instagram. So it's Integrated Kinetic Neurology, just the name of the company. On Instagram, we're really trying to put out some steady, good content on that platform, but also our website. It's www.ikneurology.com. We have all our different courses listed there. When you click on the course you're interested in, there's drop-down menus of all the cities we're coming into. There's even a breakdown of what the 2-day course looks like. And then we have contact us pages there. We have a testimonial site where anyone who's taken our course can go on the website, click write a review, shows they're a verified reviewer, because we know that's what's going to get people interested. Other people saying the course is awesome, and having real people say the course is awesome. So if you've taken a course, or if you've had some really cool results with the ICANN techniques, then we encourage you to write on there. But if you just have more questions or just want to chat, whether it's about how we started it or about our practices or whatever, we're open to chat with as many people as possible. We love bouncing ideas off with other professionals, and really trying to push the field forward. And that's all we're trying to do. And hopefully we can make some change in the next couple of years.
Cool. This has been great. Guys, I would definitely reach out to them. Watch this. This is cool. It's a neat subset of a business that can be developed within our profession. Continuing ed business has all kinds of pros and cons to it, along with cash practices or digital content and whatever it is you want to get into. But it's just cool to see people branching into other things. So, Kyle, thanks so much for your time. And as always, guys, thanks for listening, and catch us next week. Hey, real quick before we go, I just want to say thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you're one of the people that's already headed over to iTunes and left me a review, I really appreciate it. There's been over 50 iTunes reviews, and all of them being 5 stars, that have been left on this podcast since we started in August. That's awesome. And I read every single review. I take every little piece of advice that you give me in there, any criticism, any positive feedback that you have, I read all of it. And it's amazing to see that we're even getting reviews internationally at this point. So if you're one of the people that's reviewed the podcast, thanks so much. If you're an active listener of this podcast, I highly, highly encourage you to subscribe to the podcast and go to iTunes and leave me a short review. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and it really does help me get this information in front of more people. So guys, thanks again for your time, and keep listening.